Good afternoon, everybody. Short introduction. My name is Yuval Tal. In 1999, I founded a company that is now called 51, who was specialized in multi-currency acquiring. In 2005, I started Payoneer, which is specialized in global payouts. We're going to try and focus in this presentation with a few tips for small businesses who start a business or in some phase of the business who needs to start pay out people outside of the region. So if you're in Israel and you're located in Israel and you do business in Israel, we're not the solution. You need to pay out people outside of the world. That's where we can give you advice. In this case, this is the presentation to give you tips and nuances into that part. Most companies don't appreciate typically, and we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of companies, don't appreciate how critical is the ability to pay out efficiently is for the business. If you could theoretically pay out someone in India or China immediately, they would not only appreciate it, not only develop better relationship, but also increase drastically your business. And we'll see some examples. Most of the developing countries or emerging markets that e-commerce is growing at, which is Russia, Ukraine, India, China, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Brazil, most of those regions, most of the people in those regions do not have bank accounts, and if they do, then the banking system is so obsolete that paying them from an e-commerce perspective is trying to match something that completely is out of date. It looks like an import-export, it has a lot of paperwork involved, and it's very impractical. So knowing when you start your business, you want to grow, you need to understand how and what are the pain of the people that you need to pay to. This is an kind of an indication why is it so complex, why is it so expensive, why is it so slow and frustrating. And the reason is that even though e-commerce is flat, the world is flat, information is flat, video blogging is flat, payment is very much isolated to countries. And if I would ask any one of you to try and send $500 to Turkey, most likely it's going to cost him almost $80. So the payment was never addressed. Every country is different, and there have been phenomenal effort to try and overcome it. To this point, this is still a very, very significant hurdle. Some of the reason why, so obviously it's a poor interface between payment system. Israel have Masav, US have ACH, UK have Bucks, in Germany have NetDriver, China have China. And every country has its own system, and they are not integrated. There is a very, very significant cost associated with all of the payments, which is regulatory. Regulatory is in every single country with the September 11 and with the Patriot Act, and with all of the money laundering, witch hunt. The payment companies pay a very, very high price to maintain the regulatory standing. Fraud is obviously part of all e-commerce, and that goes into the payment companies. A few things that are important to understand, and this is actually, I would listen carefully now, this is critical. When you pay out to a vendor in other countries, and I'll take an example of affiliate who needs to pay a publisher, or affiliate network to pay a publisher. What typically happens is that you actually take the money from wherever you are, let's say US, and you move it into the Ukraine. So the money goes all the way with all the banking systems through 5 different banks and eventually land in Ukraine, and the bank in the Ukraine have to register it, and they have to understand, and then the money rests there, and it's there. And then most of the cases in e-commerce, you're going to take some of that money, you're going to use it, and most of that money you're going to send back into Google, Yahoo, or any of the networks and drive more traffic. And then you're going to get the money again, and then you're going to send the money back. And you send the money back and forth across continents, which is, again, extremely complicated and expensive process. What you typically try to do, and this is whether you use an e-wallet or a debit card, that's kind of how we push debit card so aggressively. We believe that debit cards is a much less friction solution, is that when you get paid from, let's say in this case, Google, they pay into some kind of a cloud. At this point, the money doesn't sit anywhere. It's still in the MasterCard cloud. If you take it in an ATM in the Ukraine, you move it to the Ukraine. If you pay back into Google in any country, or you pay a vendor, or you pay for hosting, you pay for any outsource that you do, the money lands in Belarus, lands in Germany, lands in Morocco. And then only then you address with the issue of lending the payments once. This is also very critical for tax planning. If you move the money back and forth from countries, you basically import-export. Doesn't matter that you're e-commerce, you move the money back and forth. You want to try, it doesn't matter what you do, you want to try and keep it with some kind of e-wallet or some kind of prepaid debit card, so the money, when it's getting paid, doesn't really get anywhere until you really decide what you're going to do with that money. A little bit about how to choose a vendor. Of payment vendor, doesn't matter where you go and how you use it. The first thing is make sure that it's not too cheap. It is expensive, it is complicated, it's serious. It is serious because you touch people's money. The government take it very seriously to monitor the companies who touch money. And if it's cheap, that something is wrong. Escalation channel. If you use any payment company, doesn't matter where, and I'll take an example of PayPal, and we hold them for the highest respect, but unless you have some kind of escalation point within PayPal Israel, something goes wrong, you're blocked, and you start to negotiate with Omaha, you're going to negotiate with a robot. So make sure that whatever you choose, if it's PayPal, make sure you do it with the PayPal team. If you do it with someone else, make sure that you have escalation point. Otherwise, it's extremely frustrating that the money is blocked somewhere, and it's a very, very complicated process to open it. And there have been a lot of companies who failed because the money got stuck, and by the time they could release it, if at all, it was too late. I'm going to go quickly. Never have one payment option, not on the pay-ins and on the payouts. Payments can kill your business, and it will, and payment companies do fail, and they do make mistakes. And if you have all of your business stopped, it sometimes creates such a reputation issue that you will not be able to recover. You do need to know who's behind the company. So if you use Plymouth, you need to know who the banks of Plymouth behind Plymouth are. If you're using PayPal, that's okay. They're big enough. But whatever vendor you have, you need to know who's behind them. If they're using some small dinky bank out of nowhere, it's okay, but you need to know that, and you need to assess your risk. If that company is combining a lot of either adult or a gambling merchant at the same time, they're on a higher risk. At some point, they're going to have issues. You need to know that. And then lastly, of course, truly global. Whether you want it or not, anyone that open a website, start to sell online, he's global. Very quickly, they find out that they actually have people that either buy or use or outsource or some kind of corporation in all kind of weird places. And it's critical to be global. Most of the world is out there, not in UK, US, or Germany. I'm going to skip that. We're going to be outside. If anyone wants to learn about how to choose a company, we can go there. Some case study quickly, so we can let the forum start. So this is a company who sell e-cigarette. Those who don't know, it's kind of a cigarette that you have nicotine and it's a vapor that give you a sense of smoking. It helps stop smoking. It's a global, obviously, problem. It's a global product. There are a lot of companies who do it. And the key for this company is to find enough affiliates who can help them push the product so they can sell it globally. In this case, they partner with us, with Payoneer, and their ability to partner with all kinds of countries that nobody would penetrate was a key for their success. And the ability, again, in this case, affiliates can actually sign up, push their e-cigarette, get paid instantly, spend more money on advertising it, get paid instantly, spend more money on it, and get paid quickly. Those things increase and dramatically change the pace of the growth of the business. That's kind of one example. Some bragging about Payoneer, a little bit about us. We move close to $1 billion a year into all kinds of payment options. We're about 110 people, and we service lots and lots of corporations. Like most of them, any size. People with 5, they need to pay 5 people, or need to pay 17,000 people. We typically, our claim to fame is prepaid debit card. It's typically branded with the company name. So in case of Plymouth, Plymouth have a Plymouth card. People who get paid by Plymouth have a card. They get the card. They can spend money or get money from an ATM. Our solution is totally, it's not only cards. We provide solutions into debit cards, into local bank transfer, and into most of the local e-wallets out there. I hope that's it, and there's any questions.